6:42 p.m. If everybody could rise and say the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Clerk Williamson. Call the roll.
Trustee Brown.
Present.
Trustee Clark.
Here.
Trustee Lynch.
Present.
Trustee Roll.
Here.
Trustee Taylor. Trustee Williams.
Present. We now are going to open up the public hearing, the appropriation ordinance at 6:43 p.m. And we're going to start out with, before open to the public, we're going to have Attorney John Donahue make an opening explanation.
The first question should be, what is an appropriation ordinance and why do we need it? It goes back probably close to 100 years. There's an old theory under the old Illinois Municipal Code that says that a government should not be able to spend any money unless they previously appropriated. And there are old cases where, say, a government tried to build some new facility or buy some vehicles or something, and people have sued saying you can't do that because you never appropriated. And that generally is the winning argument. So why do we do it now? A lot's changed since 1970, which was a new constitution which created the concept of home rule for local governments. Glenwood is a home rule unit of government by referendum. In other words, a vote of the people back, I think, in 1986, if my memory is correct. What home rule is it means that our power comes directly from the Illinois Constitution. And we have the power to essentially take any action we want, except to the extent that it has been prohibited by the legislature. And there's some magic language and a lot of specificity that the legislature can do in order to preempt our home rule power. That being said, the statute that requires a previous appropriation is still out there, and it still exists. But it does not preempt our home rule power. So for us, it's really not a very meaningful act, since we can spend money using our home rule power, whether we've appropriated for it or not. An appropriation does not spend any money. It does not authorize the expend any money. It just should be the maximum amount of funds that we could spend in a given year. For example, if we appropriate 2 police cars, under the old rules, we shouldn't buy 3. But with the 1970 Constitution and Glenwood status as a home rule municipality, that's all changed, and the whole concept of an appropriation for the village is fairly meaningless. For example, we generally pass this every year. We file it with the county. We put it in the drawer. No one ever looks at it, and no one ever asks about it till next year when it comes up to pass again. Why do we if it's silly, why do we need to do it? We do it because it's a statute that says we should. And we're supposed to file with the Cook County. And in theory, Cook County could decide that they're not going to extend our tax levy if they don't have an appropriation ordinance from us. So we do it for that reason, because the statute says so, and because it allows the county to then extend their tax levy on our residents. So that's why we need to do it, and that's really the only reason we need to do it. It doesn't obligate us to spend any money. Like I said before, it was maybe prior to 1970, it was meaningful to a non-home rule for the village. It's not now, given our status as a home rule, but like I said, we still need just to dot that out, really, is all it really is. So that's what it is.
The meeting is now open to the public. Anybody wishing to come up, write your name and address down, and you can address the board. Anybody?
Good evening, everyone. Eric Starr, 512 Center Street. I was just popped in and I'm glancing at this, and the first thing that I look at here that is not clear, because there's no detail, is the attorney's report, approval of an ordinance making appropriations to the village of Glenville County.
Is there any detail to this whatsoever? There is an entire appropriation ordinance which breaks things up by line item.
Is that open to the public?
Yeah.
There's an encounter and you also should have.
Oh, this is all I have.
Oh, that's all that was here.
So this doesn't tell me.
Can you go back to comment?
Brian has a copy.
You guys should have me.
Wonderful, because looking at this, it just says I can do whatever I want.
That's.
Nobody else.
Well,
will.
that's, my prior comments hold true. This is not a budget, it doesn't spend any money, it's just something we pass because we have to, we file with the county. You put it in the drawer, and no one's ever gonna talk about it again.
Well, some people do look at it, so, I mean, it would be
We just got a copy.
great to have a listing of it.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Leon Moore, 118 Blackstone.
I'm sorry, you need one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I always come to these town meetings because Mr. Donahue said it doesn't make any difference. This is just a piece of paper that we take a look at. I'm sorry.
Is that any better? And I always appreciate Mr. Donahue's purpose in terms of that it really doesn't make any difference. This is something that we have to do legally just to go in the door. But we're gonna do it. We did it, okay? And so my concern is that if we're gonna do it, even though we're not necessarily mandatorily have to follow it once it's in place, we should certainly put the best effort forward in terms of making sure, because I think it's indicative of the quality of the work that we expect of our staff in terms of presenting to the board for signature. And if this was a tax return, I would penalty approved, Mr. Mayor, would you sign it? Because there are a lot of glaring errors in the numbers. And they're easily discernible. And I had a conversation with Brian, and I recognize that he's trying to bring it together. And as you look, and of course, going to be required to vote on it, but there are some glaring errors that I think that we should have been able to pick up before the draft. You know, I had to come up with a copy of the counter. And easily, you can look at some of the numbers and you would say, okay, this is not correct. Everybody got a salary. I don't know if you know that. And this is on the budget, which we go from the appropriations to the budget. So the budget does the guidance. Is that right, Mr. Lyon?
I'm sorry, was that?
The budget?
The budget is, every second you spend on this is better spent
On the
working on the budget.
I understand.
That's the document that the village goes by. That's where, for the board, the rubber hits the road, and you're gonna decide resources you have and how you're gonna spend them.
I understand.
And does this road get built, or does this vehicle get purchased, or whatever?
No, I understand, I get it. Okay, and then my point was is that if we're gonna do it in putting our best effort forward, because if it's the tax return, I'm not sure that I would recommend to the president of the village to sign it, because there's some glaring errors in terms of just the numbers. And I can go through it, and what I get, I'm not gonna go through line by line, but for example, the salary numbers, that was based on the budget. Okay, line I discussed it, so what you're looking at, the appropriations numbers that are in this proposal are on the budget side rather than the previous appropriation side. So you don't have, it's difficult to kind of reconcile in terms of the expenditures because we have no current numbers. And so my concern is that in trying to get some current numbers, and Brian, to his credit, was trying to get some current numbers. But even with that, the numbers that are represented for salaries and things of that nature seems to be mistaken. And I say that with the idea
The
that
only increases in the salaries for the contractual employees. Is that correct?
it's not an increase, it's a decrease. It's a decrease in the appropriation orders that were put together by, on what system, wherever the system came from. Everybody got, in my favorite guy, Phil Robbins, he took a salary back. And that's why I spent half my day. Right, so, long story short. And my point is that I think we can do better, even though it's a piece of paper that we're gonna throw in the drawer, but it does signify the first step in terms of the process. So I caution the board in approving it. I don't know if you want more precision, I would, if I was sitting in your seat, in terms of at least to the extent that the numbers that are available to date would at least be reflected based on the extrapolation of those numbers for a full fiscal year. And I just offer that as an old tax guy. I don't ever resign because when you sign the tax return from the penalty of perjury, but since this has no real legal consequences, I guess we could sign it with a big deal. But there are some glaring exceptions that I see here. For example, I'm just giving a few examples here. So it seems to me that in addition to the system, I'm not sure the system we produce these numbers are either the department heads gave these numbers to Brian, so he put these numbers in. And this is draft. I recognize this is draft. But at the same time, if I'm an accountant and I'm looking at your numbers, and I see that there is such a difference between the real numbers and what actually happened, I'm going to scrutinize you a little closer. You know, I'm a little tax guy. You can't just throw numbers in. And so I suggest that, and I know I recognize we have short staff in the accounting department, and so that taking this into consideration, I got to give new reference to Brian because he's laboring under he's kind of catching up in terms of our system. But I thought our system would have produced the numbers at least year to date, and I know that we have short staff and we don't get a current year-to-date report, so it's difficult to come up with any good numbers. And so I offer that as an observation. I have a couple other observations that I want to share as well. And Brian, I'm going to ask if I ask Brian a question. Is that fair representation, Brian?
I would rather save my comments till when I roll out the actual ordinance, but in general, we did start with systematic numbers to generate this report.
And so our system now currently has different numbers than was produced on the budget. Okay. And then there are signs, for example, where in this current appropriation proposal, we have some expenditures that have always been completed. For example, they said we're not spend money on the renovation of the senior center. Well, we did. We put the roof on and all that kind of stuff. But it's in the current appropriation that it is to be done. Okay. And also there are some other issues in there that, for example, there's a $42,000 in there for a senior center director. And I remember I come to finance and I come to the board meetings, and I know that there was a long discussion about having a full-time HR person, and the question that was presented to the board, where is the money coming from? Well, we're going to round the funds, $42 grand for the senior center director, and have that go into the HR position, which is $40,000, and then get up to 80, but the offset is going to be the elimination of the senior center director. That's in the proposal. So I just point these out in terms of that. If we're going to even get preliminary numbers, let's get something forward to get the best possible preliminary numbers, even though when we get into the budget process, that's where we're going to grow. So I offer that as an observation. I have no answers, and I know that we're catching up. It seems to me that we get a second set of eyes before this kind of information is presented to the board for signing. If it doesn't matter, if we're going to be that kind of clear about it, I don't know what to say. Okay, there's one other option. I don't know. I'm not open to questions. But anyway, I just want to say, in terms of sidebar, is that the efforts of public works in respect to after the storm, it's been cheering up. I'm going to take a minute because that was a devastating storm out of Chicago. And I saw public works, they really busted their arm to try to get this community cleaned up. There were some parts of the community that took part in it. I know they rented equipment from United Rental and various other agencies that have equipment available. And I think that they need to be commended and whatever else kind of accommodation that you can afford because We really have to. Some areas got help worse than others, but I think that overall, they do a tremendous job. And I'd like to say, I have to give them a round of applause. Okay, with that, I don't want to take my seat, but if you have any specific questions in respect to the process, I think I'll try to continue, because I said, I only speak from the standpoint of what's in the proposal that you're going to be asked to sign, or what's what, that's it. Any reaction to the proposal? And the concern in the community, I can express that, is that they're not sure based on your appropriations ordinance whether or not that's going to, in effect, after we do budget, are we going to be looking at levy increase. I just wrote my check, and I'm sure a lot of people did. So there is concern as to whether or not, sorry, I'm paranoid. But, there is a lot of concerns that if we're not careful in the budget process, based on what you can see in the appropriations process, would that lead to possibly a levy increase? People are kind of concerned about that. So as we get more precise in the budget process, we don't, I guess in terms of setting priorities, in terms of what is needed to be done in the village, the citizens really would like to have more input into those priorities. Okay, I recognize that the board has a final decision on how the money is spent, but there is concern among the citizens is that how do we get our input into that priority setting process? And I know that we talk about, we have a survey and things like that, but I can't, and I'm running a lot. Kevin, I pass the 5 times a day. And so I'm just curious in terms of that, when we get to the budget process, which is really a part of the whole thing, is that how are we going to have the village residents get their input into that process before the priority is set by the staff and within the administration? And so that's something that we need to entertain, because there's a lot of chatter about a possible levy increase, and are we going to do this, are we going to do that, those kind of things. So, and also we need to have a little bit more transparency. They have to come up to the village desk, pick up a proposed ordinance. The question was, why is it on the website? Okay, because that would make it much more accessible to people who can't get to the village or who have other obligations. So consider that. The last thing I want to say in terms of the financial situation, since we haven't had current financial reports, I know that the treasury report is mandated by statute, and so we do not even get a summary on the website of the treasury report. I come to the meetings, I know that the board gets it, and I assume the administration gets it, but the citizens can't get the treasury report. Not in details how much you pay for this, how much you pay that, but we do deserve a summary. And so since we don't have financial statements, can we not have something on the website that summarizes the recommendations of the treasurer, and so that at least we can just keep up with it? Is that a fair request? I don't think it's that difficult. I'm sure the treasurer will not mind sending us a summary. We don't need to know what we have to work on, but give us some indication. We don't have financial statements. Where are we? Treasury in an organization, church, or whatever the case may be, they let you know how much you can brought in, how much you expended, how much you expect, and where did it go. We don't see that at the residence level, and we love to have that on the website. That's my thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Michelle Mosley, 337 Harvard. I just have one question. Well, it's going to be one more question. It's not starting with So, Michelle Mosley, 337 Harvard. So, I fully understand the whole ordinance, but somebody thought about somebody's numbers. Because if you look under the fire department, you'll see that they have contracted services for $904,488. Last year, that number was $70,000. That number has increased by $830,000. So somebody knows something. It's not just coming out the blue. And all these other their salaries missing, that were there last year. We have deputy directors who ain't in this ordinance package. They don't have no salaries. The numbers, bottom line, have gone down. But the reason why the bottom line went down is because somebody is putting stuff in a hat. I don't know what's happening here, but I just ask you guys, look at this and ask questions. What's $900,000 for contracted services? What's that for? Because there's $2.5 million in the hospital tips for the fire station and whatever. So what's this other $800,000 for that we didn't need last year?
I can answer that question for you. Over here, Kevin. We've been talking about the Emergency Medical Transportation Act, GEMT. We built forward, and it's across every community in Illinois. We signed an intergovernmental agreement with the state of Illinois on your paramedic ambulance billing. If it's a Medicare patient, you're getting reimbursed $300 or $400. Chief Wells, commentary, what are your ambulance funds? $2,300? $324, yeah. So this bridges the gap between the $2,300 that you charge normal ambulance billing to what the state provides at $400. So that additional $1,900 is cheap.
This is $900,000.
Okay, finish this.
Sure.
I'm talking about one transportation loan. It's $1,900 that bridges the gap. The IGA that the village signed with the state of Illinois Department of Health and Human Services requires that you remit 50% of the revenue that you're receiving from the federal government back to the state of Illinois. So, what was it, $870,000 was our projected amount that we remove back.
Okay. If that makes sense, of course, I can't know that, but if you say so.
But we've been talking about the GMT program. Chief Welsh, has talked about the revenues coming in. I think they started coming in January, earlier this year. So that's based
Do we
on,
know how much we got?
I do not know.
Does it offset this 900 by a great deal?
Well, it's 50%. So your revenues would be 1.8 million.
Do we know what deputy director's salaries are yet?
So last year's ordinance had it on there. This year, all the deputy directors are part of the full-time line. And the reason why I did that is because from a accounting standpoint in our system, they all roll into the same account. So I can't necessarily separate them out easily. So instead of calling out a separate line, having to back it out of full-time, I merged the two together.
Do we have more or less full-time firemen than we had last year?
Firemen, we have 3 open positions that are in the plan.
So we currently have more, or are those two positions out or budget or in sources?
All we have is the chief and deputy chief.
Okay, that's,
And we have 3 open positions.
and they are in this ordinance,
They are in this ordinance.
and they were in the ordinance last year.
I believe so.
Yes.
Because the number is only different by $13,000, and you're telling me that the deputy that was 100 and something last year is rolled into that number. That's why I'm asking. Okay, very good.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to address the board?
Can you speak to that a little bit more, Brian? If it's only a 13,000 increase and if you got deputy positions rolled into just that particular one salary line, how is it possible? How is it only increased by 13,000 with deputy salaries included in there? That seems rather low.
So my question, I wasn't around for the appropriations last year.
I can't hear you out.
I wasn't around for the appropriations last year, but my assumption is that when they prepared the appropriations, you include those additional firefighters that were approved, I think back in January.
No.
That didn't happen.
No.
The appropriation last year, don't have it in front of me, but it did show the deputies, chiefs, and police and fire, rolled out. But in this year's what Brian did The three salaries for the firefighter paramedics are 70 apiece, 210, and 110 for the deputy salary. So that's your 320 as shown on this appropriation.
So who was there last year?
Who was?
It was 309 last year, and you had a separate line item for the 100 for the deputies.
Right, and we didn't hire anybody, so that money wasn't spent at all. Still haven't hired anybody.
Anybody else wishing to address the board?
First of all, one,
You can write your name and address.
It's nothing there.
You steal the paper, Leanne?
Add up to the appropriation.
I did.
Deputy Chief, arrest that man. I'm sorry, your name is?
President Raj. President Raj, 501 North Virginia Avenue. I didn't get here on time, so I don't know if you guys discussed it or what happened. I was trying to find out what's going to happen with the shutdown situation. So I addressed that.
Yeah, that's going to be on the agenda tonight. What we are doing is we're not just chuckling, all the bars and restaurants in town. As opposed to the way the liquor license now is if they order a drink, they can stay here as long as they want. So what we're going to try and then tonight, we'll see how the vote goes. We're going to say that you can only stay a half hour and you cannot order any more liquor or anything along those lines. So.
I think the problem is once they close, they're still in the parking lot. So I think that's like that. That's what happened with the shooting.
And then part of the problem was is that they were sticking around. So that's why we're addressing that with this, you can only stay at that hour and leave. So we're not gonna allow them to, buy a bottle or whatever, and they stay around drinking. So that's what this ordinance is to do, and on top of that too, we are gonna put the, just sold in a parking lot behind the Chevrolet. So it's gonna be next to that building there, so we're gonna have a brand new parking lot behind the Chevrolet. I agree, that's the reason that we have that line item on tonight. We don't need people sticking around until 4 o'clock in the morning.
I don't know what time to close, but I know that the other all night, but I hear I still right across the street from us.
Yeah, so that's why we put that on it's being voted on tonight. We're trying to send the problem, if that doesn't work, we'll try different things. Now, we'll keep on escalating the ordinances that we can do against that. Thank you. Anybody else wish to address the board?
Good evening, everyone. I just got in to show that, all of being late, I thought we were starting at 6:30, so, do apologize for the breakfast. I just got a notice of the, car over on Illinois Street, on 183rd, and I don't know if that's some pictures about it, whether it was addressed earlier now.
It was addressed as soon as, actually, Mr. Tinchall, the public works took care of it this afternoon. As soon as we heard about it, we fixed it.
It's all cleaned up now.
Yes. We've had that problem a few times.
Okay.
The public works has fixed it, but this afternoon we fixed that. We don't need any of that graffiti on the park. I really don't. And the other thing we're gonna do is move a police camera over there.
So it really had me other ridiculous now. So I just want to let you know that it was.
You don't ever hear their calls, because they're very cooperative with the order, that people.
Absolutely.
So,
Okay,
call
well,
the police.
I assume that someone else close to the call by that time. I'll make a point of making
It
that.
never hurts to call again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And lastly, the crowd that was on, Illinois Street or whatever it was when they had all these kids out last week. I'm assuming that has been addressed. However, my thought process of some of this is that I understood the police said they were outmanned. Okay, and when I was a police officer, when we were outmanned, we would call the surrounding other districts to come and assist us. So now, it wasn't the thing about how soon we would do it. If we saw a crowd like that, that was something done immediately because we knew that that was filtrated into our community, but we didn't want that. I think
Is the house in Virginia?
I'm sorry. I don't know where the house
Yeah, Arizona.
I'm sorry?
It's 514 Arizona.
No, it was Virginia. You right, you got it right.
Okay. And so whatever caused that crowd to be converging on our community, it needs to not happen before it happens. And if we wait until it happens, then it's gonna take longer to get the problem, you know. It's just like an insect in your house, I'm gonna call them a very sharp point goose to get rid of them. You know, so the thing is that we can try to avoid it from coming in the beginning, that's what happens. So if any of the neighbors see things like that beginning to take shape from the onset, that's when we should call the police. So that
We do have a mutual aid between the community around us. So even if it gets big like that, we only have a couple officers, we can call mutual aid.
Yes, and actually in this instance, we did call the mutual aid.
A little bit about the
So we actually, in this instance, Virginia called, we did call for assistance from other agencies mentioned, and they did come.
and I was hearing it still wasn't enough to activate, because
There was-
as it was brought to me, it is, you know, if it was a situation where someone had to call for emergency ambulance or something like that, there was no way anybody was gonna be able to get in or out of a situation like that. And I'm more concerned with the community and what problem we may have, as opposed to people coming into the community and having a problem. So we can circumvent that from the onset, knowing that these things that's happened already, now we know what to do to try to prevent it from happening again.
Absolutely. And in this case, it was a college send-off party that was being called Christian Minnesota.
It must be going to the moon and all right, thank you.
Thank you.
But if I might add, the residents of the homeowner was cited for local ordinance.
They were cited, good for cited.
Good evening, everyone. Judith Mims, can you hear me?
Yes.
349 Stripe Lane. Several things. First and foremost, with the levy, please consider that vote. Because according to Fritz Cady last week at the meeting, the businesses, which this has been discussed, were taxed 1% and the residents, I think it was 18%, is outrageously overwhelming. So, you know, we can't do it. It's too much.
You know, the code in Glenwood is 9%.
And I'm not speaking of Glenwood, I'm talking about Southland.
I agree 100%, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not just limiting it to Glenwood because the meeting was for the Southland.
Yeah, I'm talking about the South Suburbs and managers, and every town in this area is reeling from these taxes. The village of Glenwood has not raised our levy or our taxes.
Mhm.
But what they did is, Fritz Craigie did his evaluation, and then the Board of Review did their evaluation. And what they did is they reduced all the businesses, which causes the taxes to go on the homeowners.
Right,
And it's important
yes.
that they did. It's
He
important.
said that.
Yeah, it is important.
Mhm. And we have already, we're living this. It's due in 2 days. And I'm not gonna review the work of this. It's just overwhelmingly crazy.
I agree.
But unless people speak out and something is done, they will continue. He did not even give a clear explanation. He just went over just what was on the tax bills and told us about how that was the first time this. But maybe he doesn't even know. But the people who have to pay these absorbent, over-the-top taxes that increase 2% and 3%,
doubled, tripled, mine almost tripled. It's just unbelievable. It really is.
The assessor owns the board of review claims the assessor.
Right.
So that's-
And he told me, well, you know how that goes, so that's the politics and it all.
So we are still working to see what we can do with the South Suburban Community Managers, bringing all the communities together. I don't know if we'll get anywhere or not, but we're gonna try.
There's answering numbers.
Yes.
I truly believe that.
Yeah.
Yes, we cannot give up.
No, it's.
So you have to start somewhere to do something. This is the first time this has ever happened like this.
I agree.
And I'm on board with getting it done.
I agree.
The thing about Chugga, I live, the gentleman that just spoke, I guess he lives basically in back across the street. I live 2 blocks in. I was in my bed asleep and heard the pop, 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 and woke up and startled. So we've been through a lot with Chugga, and they know how we feel as residents. They try to do better, but it's not getting any better. And I know you know all of this, but it's something else has to be done.
I agree.
And I know you're working on it. You know, the board is working on it. But it's the people who live right there, truly, is an experience. It really is. The other thing about the Virginia incident a couple of weeks ago was over 100 people that were let out of vans in the street, parked all over the place at 1 to 2 in the morning. And I know the police departments did do the best that they could. There is a limited number of policemen in all villages, but I know especially Glenwood, they did call for the backup, and and Homewood really resolved that issue. So they did disperse. Hopefully that will not happen again. We are going to have on August, I think it's the 10th, a prayer vigil at one of the residents' homes right there on Virginia. So it will be at 6:30 that evening, August 10th. That was just sent to me. And we're exhausting everything, but it has really brought a lot of people in the States together, definitely. I would like to thank Public Works too. Much appreciation. I think I've done it already. And thank you enough. And I would like to thank the police department because, is it Officer Cotton? Sergeant Cotton, is that you?
No,
Okay. Anyway, he came to my house today. Once we found out about the graffiti and what had been done to the park, and he spoke to me, and he said it was not the first time. You told me that as well. But the minute I texted Mayor Gardner, the minute he was on it, and I thank you for that because I just couldn't even think. I really couldn't. And I'm a former educator, and first and foremost, children don't have any business out in the middle of the night, anywhere. That's my thing. And this supposedly was done in the middle of the night, according to what our group chat said. So we are extending our eyes and ears as should be, and we thank you for putting the camera there, because the lighting is great. But we do need the camera, and the residents will certainly appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Leanne was the second bite of the apple. Which is fine, I'm kidding.
I'm going to kind of morph into the police issue in terms of that. Obviously, there's a lot of activity which requires police presence and things like that. And the board should be aware that we are really at a crunch time in terms of potential attrition in or laterals out. And so as we look at the budget for police, we came before you before suggesting that we upsurge because we anticipated some attrition. And now what is happening is we have a run, as you may know, in terms of trying to get some people on our list. It's so difficult. And so on behalf of the police and the Fire and Police Commission, we're all about trying to get this, but the board's going to have to take a position in terms of how do we incentivize, one, those trained officers that we have to stay, and what do we do to incentivize new officers to come to Linwood? We struck out. We struck 100% out. We had a list that started with 11, got down to 9, 6 showed up for the written, 4 came in for the oral, only 2 people were on the list, and both of them got pushed out. And when the one guy got paid, he was going to another village. So we had one person that was just not acceptable. So as we talk about the appropriations, and we talk about the budget, we're going to have to really take a hard look at investing in our police's presence, because we're going to hit a crunch time that we're not going to have sufficient staff to do all the things that are currently happening in this village. So I speak not only for myself as a resident, also on the Fire Police Commission, as well as, and the same thing happened with the fire. When we went out to paramedics, we struck out. So the board's going to have to come to grips with how we're going to incentivize those 2 occupations to come together. And so as we move out of the appropriations orders into the budget process, I hope that we can have some common ground in terms of if we're going to have more police, if we're going to have to catch up in terms of the issues that are facing the police in terms of recruitment. That's going to be a big budget. It's costly to do
I
it.
think he told me that in Homewood paid a $20,000 bonus.
I'm sorry.
Isn't Homewood paid?
Yeah, Homewood, yes, the Homewood pays 20,000 retention, I think 3 or 4, in the town part of it, they give a retention bonus, you gotta stay there for 4 or 5 years, okay? Over in Tinley Park, they're paying paramedics to get a sign-up bonus. Tinley Park is 57,000 people, so. But the thing is, we're not competitive in terms of the incentives that we're offering to keep people here, and unfortunately, I guess in terms of the attrition, we have a number of officers that are eligible to retire, and if they decide to take that retirement, we would be really, really hurt. And so I offer that in terms of just a caution, and as we get into the budget, we got a lot of things on the budget, but we need to, in effect, pay attention to what are we going to do to make sure that we have the public safety in terms of the police as well as the paramedics that we're going to have to make some investments. So I say that as a citizen, also on the Fire Police Commission, as well as the finance person. So we just got to put some money around.
Chairman Moore, actually, has the fire police here again, Commissioner Moore, has the fire police commission looked at possibly, I don't have an answer now, but contracting with, police agencies? I know, for example, Chicago does with special patrol, and I mean, they have the same rescue authority that CPD does, and other law enforcement agencies, but, I mean, we consider that, have actively moved with it with the fire department. Perhaps if you're having trouble retaining people or getting new recruits, that maybe we should also look at that on the police side.
Yeah, we're willing to look at everything. We're going to be meeting with the department, we're going to be with the fire department. We need to come up with some incentive, but it's going to be on the board, because obviously we don't have authority in terms of pay, whatever, all that stuff, but we're going to be coming back to you. I suspect that we get the input from the departments as to how can we best incentivize people to take Linwood seriously in terms of our recruitment effort. Sometimes we're using it as a stepping stone. We get in our system, and then we make an offer, and then it jumps to another department. So I know we're going out with a lateral. I know we're, in effect, now trying to train police officers from other departments on a lateral basis. We've been at that for a couple of years now, Carl.
About a year and a half.
About a year and a half, and that did not turn out to be the panacea that we thought it was going to be, but we just got to explore every option. Thank you.
Hi, Barbara Newman, Avenue 2, West Wisconsin Street. Just with each other, that we talked about not giving it after 30 minutes, they can't get anything else to drink. Like the young man said, they're going to hang around the parking lot. After somebody needs to tell them, it's time to go. Move the cars, get out. Because if they don't, they're going to be hanging around in the parking lot. You may open up another big old playground behind the place at the parking lot, and the same thing might occur. And I've seen this in the city. And this is why I'm just saying, so we need to figure out something else.
and I have been a resident here since 2000. Okay, and I left the community 3 years ago and came back. The reason I came back is because I've always enjoyed Glenwood. The community, the residents, administration has always been very responsive. However, I've been back a year so far, and I must say, this has been an extremely challenging time, especially with the Chubba. Okay, my fellow neighbor, we're here today because just like the other residents here, you know, we woke up to gunshots, rounds and rounds of gunshots. My neighbor even took a video sound for all this gunshot. Okay? It comes to a point where whether a business is really a value-added asset to the community. I understand that you all are introducing an ordinance in terms of how they can serve liquor, but I will cautiously encourage you to start thinking more strategically and setting a timeline in terms of how we as a community and residents come to operate a business. Every community is suffering from, you know, crime, you know, trying to generate revenue. But there's a cost to certain business coming to the community. Is this business a value asset to our residents, to our community, our safety? I don't want, and I live directly, my backyard is facing Chubba. You know, I don't want my safety or even the other residents to have to worry about waking up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. The cars on that particular night last weekend, they were all in front of my apartment. You know, that says a lot, you know, for those residents who can't afford to go to a different community. Okay, I can't afford to move to a different community. However, why should I have to? Okay, so everyone here, we're paying your salaries. We're paying your salaries. Our taxes are going to your salaries, so I think it behooves you to come up and talk to Chuggalug. You know, we want new businesses here. Just like the last resident that brought up the new community center or something that's going on that we built. So we got the added asset of that business. We don't know what the potential quality is going to be for that business, nor do we know what is going to happen when the casino open up. Okay? That's my concern with all this. Seems to be growth, but is it right for the community? Okay? I haven't had an opportunity to come to the meetings, but you will be seeing my face because I am adamant about where I spend my money. You know, I want Glenwood to continue to thrive. You know, and I'm not a negative person, but I want to make sure that this community continues to grow. I have my safety, you all have your safety with your families here. And I am directly being impacted because this has been directly across for me. Okay? But I will I'm going to table that conversation in terms of Chuggalug and upcoming businesses. But I do want to thank the Department of Sanitation along with Public Works because my home was damaged due to the storm, and that has been very challenging for me. But I must say they did a very fantastic job taking care of all the debris. They were very responsive, and I want to also thank Carolyn because I've known her a while. I'm always up in the village. She gave me some additional information. But I want to thank her also for being very responsible for anytime I reach out. Okay? That's it.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mayor, you know, after hearing a lot of comments, I would recommend one of the directors of the budget office for Brian and them to prepare the budget with no increases to tax levy. So that would be my recommendation to them in direction of the board as well.
Okay. Well, the public hearing is closed. Now communications from the mayor's office. Joe, I don't want you to get a big head, but I'm going to thank you too. You and your public works guys did a great job, especially after that storm. It was devastating, especially the west side of town. East side of town got hit bad too, but you guys did yeoman work. So let's give a round of applause.
Mayor, we did get a lot of assistance from the fire department, Chief Walsh, and some of his staff too, so they deserve some of that round of applause as well.
And I drove around. Attorney's report, John Donohue.
Thank you, Mayor. First item is we're looking for approval of an ordinance amending section 10-46 of the village's code of ordinances to require that restaurants and clubs with liquor license close within 30 minutes after the time they can no longer sell.
So we get a first and a second, and we'll discuss. Trustee Lynch, trustee Roll. Okay, what this is what we were talking about. People can stay in the, drink and stay in the establishment as long as they want. This will stop. John, why don't you do the trade?
Yeah, what, we had a conference call with Brian with and I and with the chief. And what we were just kind of disturbed to find out is that our liquor code goes back to the early 70s. And it had no requirement that the establishment close after their time for selling liquor has expired. So if someone would say, if you're licensed till 2, you can go 5 minutes to 2, buy a bottle of something, and sit around until whatever at the place and drink it. So what we did is we added language which requires that once their time for selling liquor expires, typically 2 o'clock, they need to close their place within 30 minutes. So it allows people a half hour to finish their drink, their meal, and then they gotta take them all.
Are there any questions?
I have a question. How come we can't include something about the parking lot area? After they leave out of the building, the structure itself, they only have so much time to clear the parking lot. Because it seems to me that most of the problem is occurring when they get to the parking lot, not when they sit into the building.
We have to do separate ordinance, or do we have to do this?
Well, not right now. Let's pass this one now, and then we'll look at that.
That's actually what I'm getting, trustee Wood. That's what it is.
I'd like to say something about parking. Initially, we should have an ordinance saying there is absolutely no loitering after the establishment. No loitering whatsoever. When they leave the establishment, keep them from loitering around the parking lot, is that they can't stay, they should be getting in the car and leaving the premises. And you should have something that states that. That's all I get.
So I have a question. Attorney Donohue, if the board was able to pass this ordinance tonight, how soon would it take effect for you to enforce it?
The general rule on ordinances is 10 days after it's passed and signed.
So if we did approve this and it goes into effect within 10 days, are you prepared to work on the amendment that would include parking lot or loitering to prevent future occurrences?
I believe I have a vague memory of having done something like that many years ago over here. So I need to check to see what we have on the books actually. But let me check and make sure we're going to make it effective. Yeah. The standard effective date. So
And so would you want to be notified, so someone delivered this, or notify them that this ordinance is now in passed and that they must adapt the change to their business practices?
That's the rule.
And we have signs to that effect, posted everywhere.
Well, we put signs up for past the parking ordinance, but it's talking, the owner will be responsible for kicking everybody out.
Okay. I'm saying that there should be no time limit that to get the cars out.
he might be willing to do that. He's usually very cooperative.
They've been a citizen too.
Yes, I agree. He doesn't want the trouble.
Mayor, would it, I know we did something with the skating rink about their hours, but I can't remember if it was consistent.
And what we did with them is we said that if he has no parties, he's got to get approval from the police chief. That be.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was referring to operating hours. I could be mistaken, but I thought that we had said it where, because I think they were saying open till 1 or 2 in the morning and change their operating hours, reduce their hours. The ordinance, they close for time.
The ordinance was at 1 a.m. for the skating rink.
Right, so was that just for the skating rink, or was that just for Glenwood businesses?
It was just because there's an ordinance for the skating rink specifically and their hours. And what they wanted was the liquor license, right? They wanted their operating hours to match the liquor license. And we did that.
So maybe that could also be a look at, but to Trustee Williams and Trustee Clark's point, I'm speaking as I don't feel it, but I think that, because even if we get another business, you know, that mirrors the same type of activity or business, if you will, that Sugarloaf does, maybe it would also behoove us to create an ordinance that if you're going to have that type of establishment, you have to have a ratio of I would prefer off-duty officers to the amount of parking spots that you have outside. Because at that point, like the deputy chief, and I've witnessed it when I'm coming home and I see a police car sitting in Sugarloaf, and I think to myself, in a sense, it's wasted resources because at a certain time, we downsize the number of officers we have on the street. So now we just have a car there when they could, and anybody who's intelligent enough to pay attention for a short period of time can tell the amount of officers that we have after a certain time, and if one is positioned there, you know, that takes away resources. So I think that if we get another business, or even just with Sugarloaf, we add to that ordinance that Trustee Clark and Trustee Williams indicated that they are required to have off-duty officers. There has to be a ratio of parking spaces to off-duty officers in that parking lot during peak hours, because, I mean, unless they're gonna pay, are they paying us for police there? It's a waste of resources. It's really a waste of resources.
Any other questions?
I'm sure, I guess we're all aware of the events that have taken place at Sugarloaf over the last year or two. What are the conversations been like with the owner? I know that he tries to be a good steward to the community, but, you know, what is his comment or feedback, or is he planning to do anything different? What is he saying, you know, as you walk beside these items?
So Trustee Rowland and all trustees and mayor, I have met with Sylvan since this is 2 or 3 times. I probably have had 4 phone calls starting on Sunday morning. He called me. Pretty much, he wants to be able to provide a safe environment for people to come and enjoy themselves. When these situations happen, he begins to review things and figure out what can he do to do better. One of the things that we identify right now is that with the club that's within the area downstairs, he is temporarily closing that until he can then acquire some more security. He's looking at more lighting outside the parking lots. He has full control of everything from the inside. And I take that from the extent of meetings I've had with the chief and the deputy chief from our police department in terms of incidents that are happening inside. We've all identified that the problem is outside. With that being said, he's now looking at more security, not to pull any security from inside out, but adding additional security. Outside, he's looking at off-duty police officers. He wants them to be able to have arrest powers. He doesn't want someone that just has security on their back and someone that just walks around with kind of a, I don't want to say a nylon vest, but not necessarily bulletproof. He wants people that hopefully ensure security and then to minimize some of these events that have taken place up until this point. He's also looking at adding more cameras to the back area so that when things happen, they can be able to see what's going on see what's going on a little bit faster. I sat with him last Thursday in his office behind the bar on the main level where he has all of the cameras. And I asked, I said, well, during the times you're open, you know, it's nice to have these cameras, but who's watching? He says 95% of the time it's him. He says if he gets up to move away from there, he either has one of his assistant manager or manager sits right there. Those cameras watch the inside and most of the front of the lot. What it's identified is that he needs to improve something on the back side. It also monitors the lower level, the main level, and the upper level. So I would say, you know, the conversations that I've had with him have been good. He's also asked for suggestions. There was times before where he's met with the police chief, the deputy chief, on some other incidents that were not as serious as this. He says, you know, what do you all recommend? Clearly, our police department are law enforcement officers. There's a difference between law enforcement officers and those who provide security at night clubs. So, you know, we point him in the direction to reach out to some of the experts in those fields. He's also identified where he's gone back and looked to see what took place on that night, and he's decided that going by some of the things that security did that did not meet what he thought the expectation was that they should be, he terminated those employees immediately. So he's looking at it not necessarily from an investment of making money, but he's looking at it from continued support and continued safety and security for people that are coming out to enjoy themselves. I did tell him that, you know, we're looking at some things, and then just like the question earlier was, you know, how will, not to single out Chugga-Lug, but how will all the bars find out the changes if you all make that vote tonight? You know, what we're gonna do is I'll set up a couple of meetings, but more importantly, the police department, where I spoke with the deputy chief, the chief is on vacation. Once this takes impact and effect, we will definitely go out and meet with them so that they're aware. We don't want these to be one of these laws that people say, well, ignorance of the law is not an excuse. We want to make sure that they're informed and know what their expectation is going to be. What's going to happen is that, you know, once they get to that point, the police department is going to make sure, and the only way to do it is to enforce what you all pass. So hopefully that provides some answer and clarification to your questions.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just have a quick question. What time does Chugga-Lug close? Is it 1 or 2?
2.
So that means that at 1:30, they'll say it's no more liquor served at 1:30, and then they can stay until 2 o'clock? Or is it the opposite?
The liquor license is good for 2, which means you have to close by 2.
But they close at 2.
No, the liquor, they can't serve liquor at.
Okay, so I just asked like what time do they close, and I was told 2. So they close at 2. You can't get in, they close at 2, but they can stay there and drink until 2:30.
Yes.
I don't think they should do that. If they close, I mean, I'm just my little opinion, but you can't do it like that. If they close at, how about this?
What they have been doing, which is ridiculous in my opinion, they buy a bottle at say 1:30 in the morning, 1:45, and then they sit there and drink the rest of the bottle. With a liquor license, you can only serve till 2, and so they sit there because the establishment can be open.
But why do they allow that? I can't stay, if Jewel closes at midnight, I just can't stay there until 12:30. Because they're going to tell me I have to leave. So if they close at, just help me understand, okay, how the ordinance works and all that. If the liquor license is until 2, can that mirror that they close at 2 and last call is at 1:30? Not the opposite, if it's over at 2, how are you just going to stay in the building at 2:30? No wonder people shooting at 2:30. I mean, they're still there.
I think it was later than that because they stuck around a lot longer.
Well, I talked to one of the guards, and one of the guards told me that Chugga-Lug closed at 1, and the shooting really happened at 2:30.
And 2:30.
It's okay, and he said that they were already closed. So that's why I was asking, well, what time did they really close? Because he said they closed at 1, but it really closed at 2.
It could close at 1, like,
Okay.
restaurants that are around here close at 1 o'clock, and they have a 2 a.m. liquor license. And we should look at our liquor license, because as John said, these liquor license categories, most of them have been in place since the 70s. So we should do a comprehensive approach.
I agree,
Yeah.
because 2 o'clock is,
Yeah, and that's just, that was our standard liquor license.
sure.
Any other questions? Deputy Clerk? We can't, unfortunately, we can't. We can talk afterwards. Deputy Clerk, please. Sure.
Does that apply to the liquor store as well?
No, the liquor store license is, I think it's 10 o'clock. At 9 or 10 o'clock.
Really?
Yeah, it used to be 8:30, getting moved up to 10.
So they can't sell any liquor after 10, but they can sell?
No, you said, I think it's the liquor stores.
I said liquor store.
Yeah, we only have 2, and yeah, they can't sell after 10 o'clock.
Okay.
Or 9 o'clock, I can't remember. And just so everybody knows, we are only having, there were some people out there thinking that we were gonna have 6 liquor stores or some ridiculous amount. I want everybody to know right now, we have 2 liquor stores. One on the east side of the tracks and one on the west side of the tracks. That is all there will be in the village of Glenwood. There will not be more. The liquor store, Emporium Liquors, that's Plaza by Arnello's, is moving to their new building on Main Street, and there will be no other liquor license. We will only have 2 liquor stores in the village of Glenwood, separated by the tracks. Just so everybody knows. There's rumors out there that we're gonna put up with it, and it's not the case. They're moving to their new store on Main Street. Any other questions? Deputy Clerk Williamson, call the roll.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Clark? Trustee Lynch?
Yes.
Trustee Roll? Yes. Trustee Taylor? Yes. Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Item 2, John.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Item 2 is approval of an ordinance making appropriations for the village of Glenwood for the fiscal year beginning May 1st, 2024, ending April 30th, 2025.
Why don't we get a first and a second, and then we'll discuss. Trustee Lynch and Trustee Taylor? Okay, any questions? Brian, Mark, what do they like to know? You want to give a quick overview? I know you hit a number.
Yeah, I was planning on giving an overview, so.
You were not, or were?
No, I was.
Okay, good. Well, you're up.
So, the first thing I'd like to stress again, based on John's comments, that this is not the budget, this is appropriations, and we will move forward on a budget, and like you said, that will be lower than this value. I'm not sure how the appropriation was done last year, so there is some discrepancies with values as far as Leon's comment about the fire and the salaries. I'm going to tell you, we took it more from a systematic approach, using Sandy with an HR team to develop what that budget is for the salaries. We added for open positions. We added the contractual increases that are out there for police and public works, and that's roughly 3.5%. It's a little bit different than public works, but there is a group that gets the 3.5%. Right now, it does not include any increases in any corporate staff personnel. To give you some perspective on that, if we want to change that part of the ordinance, we can. 1% for each 1% we would want to give to the corporate staff, it would cost, or it would increase the appropriations by about $20,000. If we do the 3.5 and match what police and public works, and we're talking about a $70,000 increase to the appropriations. Hopefully that helps on the salary side. Also looking, maybe I should add some more comments on that salary side. When this whole budget was put together, or the whole appropriation was put together, I used the budget worksheets that each of the department heads turned in, plus Sandy's input on the salaries. And when I looked at it, at that point, I was comparing to last year's budget. I'm going to stress that again, last year's budget. So as an example for the fire that was called out earlier, looking at last year's budget, it's an $80,000 increase in fire. But the appropriation is showing a decrease. So I'm not sure, again, how the appropriation was calculated last year and developed. But that's another kind of wild card in this. Me personally, going forward, I'm trying to tie it to how we're doing our general ledger and how we're budgeting and create the appropriations on there. So that it's kind of an all and all one source of documents. So we'll move forward and try to get better transparency on that. I left for all the trustees an additional worksheet, because one of my other checkpoints when it came down to the end of the appropriation was what's reasonable. And it's ultimately up to you guys, and this is, in my mind, more of a working session, and we're going to get this done by your input, and I have the documents in front of me so I can change them as we walk through this. But the document that I left you is the average consumer price index by month. Well, it's calculated by month, so I did this in concert with our fiscal year, so it's an April, it's a May to April year. And basically you can see what the consumer price index is. You know, a 1% increase to our appropriations doesn't look bad when you're looking at what statistically says the consumer price index is at 3%, above recent. The last 2 months, and that's starting the fiscal year 2025, is 3.15. So again, a 1% increase is, it's okay. I'm not saying that's going to make our levy change or your levy change, and you guys have to pay more into the levy. So it's really kind of a validation point for me. So when I got down to the very end, with everybody's input, putting it all together, and noticing that being at $25,657,545, we're $301,000 over the prior year appropriation, and I'm going to qualify again, prior year's appropriation. That's a 1.19% increase. Again, you can weigh it one way or the other. That's within reason to what we have here as far as the consumer price index. So not only are the residents impacted by the consumer price index, we are, as a village, cost increases on any aspect of what the village wants. So we have to keep that in mind. I'd like to have you guys look at page 12 of the ordinance. We can go through every line if you want it, but I was hoping to just stay kind of high level at this because it is more of a directional, and we will fine-tune the budget coming out of this meeting. But on page 12, you'll see the recapitulation of all the lines that are before it, and that kind of summarizes the entire budget. So some of the major lines that are changing here, kind of going to reiterate what you got as a memo, but the general corporate grouping is going up $550,000. Primarily, what's in the appropriation at this point, we have an additional $350,000 for public works vehicles, which include a plow truck, mini dump truck, 4 pickup trucks. We also have 2 police vehicles within this. So between the two of them, that's 450 of the 550. The motor fuel tax is actually going down by 265,000. This is primarily due to reducing the streets, sidewalks, and bridges line item compared to the previous year. Sewer and water is actually going down to the appropriation value by 72,000. Although within that reduction, we're seeing significant increases for water of $530,000 that we're paying to Chicago Heights for the water for everybody in this municipality. In addition, there's another bucket for vehicles here for the water sewer team. It's $300,000, and it includes an excavator and 2 Chevy plow trucks and a vac truck. Glen Woody is pretty much flat. TIFs. In total, the whole TIF block is up 98,000. I can quickly tell you that the 98,000 is really the lighting that we're thinking about going into the Main Street area. That's going to be about $170,000 to do that within the TIF. We do have some major bucket changes between South Halsted. We have the detention / South Plaza connection for the sewer line, if I remember right, going into that detention line. Storm sewer, I should say. That's about $1.9 million that we have in the appropriations for that. On the flip side, we're having a reduction on the North Halsted side, and that's because last year the North Halsted was planned for or had the firehouse on there for $1.4 million. So that's the $1.4 million comes off, but we still have costs that we're still paying into this year, meaning now 2025. So we have $700,000 left there. So it's going to show a reduction of $700,000 here. The other ones, I'm going to say they're pretty low in kind of immaterial, but if you want to talk through some of those lines, you can.
Any questions?
I have a question. I'm trying to separate the understanding that this is not a budget. This is not the budget. But at the same time, these are real numbers that you have from the system. So on one end, I understand that part, but on the other end, I'm looking at some numbers that kind of just jump out to me. For example, village trash disposal, $745,000. How much trash do we have? I mean, I know that's not, again, a budget, but it's the reason why.
So similar to water,
Okay.
this is the whole community's trash component. So all of your pickups for home disposal off goes through that account.
So the water is just here.
So it's not just the village, 740,000.
It's a line item on your utility bill per resident that you pay for disposal. Then the village turns around and pays the invoice for the collection of the actual disposal.
So we bill the residents for their garbage and their water, and that's offset by that.
It says that the public works director is salary $36,000. I thought somebody said maybe more than that.
So the public works director is split between two departments within the general ledger, one being sewer and water, and one being in the public works component. So between the two of them, it's 105 or 6,000. I can't remember the exact number right now. And that's actually an open position.
And all full-time employees in the public works division is split between the general fund and the water and sewer fund. I believe the split is 40%, 60%, and that's because of the allocation of resources. So there's different revenue sources, and then that's that split has been historically what the average has been.
Last question, thank you. So if there are like various discrepancies, like major discrepancies that we're talking about, why, I don't know if this is a good question or not, why do we have the major discrepancies here for us to vote on major discrepancies for this appropriation?
And I guess I'm not following what your question is on that. Are you saying the discrepancies compared to last year's appropriation, or?
Well, like you, I wasn't here last year to look at the appropriation. I don't have anything to compare it to. So I just got on the board in January. So this is, that's what I'm saying. It's hard for me to decipher that this is not the budget, but at the same time, you got these numbers from someplace.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, it's, the starting point is using the budget source that you will see again,
Okay.
more fine-tuned, because we haven't sat as a team, as a management team, to go through that to then present the official budget. And plus, we need to finalize our revenues so that we can compare the revenues and the expenses and make sure if there's a huge gap there, then we narrow that in addition to using this, what I'm going to call guideline right now.
Okay. Mayor, are you said that the taxes have been levied for the past, how many years?
We have not raised our levy,
Yeah.
is it 6 years, 7 years? 6 or 7.
Do you plan on doing the same? I mean, to continue it for the next year?
That is my plan. Any other questions?
Yes.
I
I do have a question here.
I'm sorry.
So while we're happy to have the new addition in finance, I guess one of my questions, or which I kind of noticed the same things before, about the senior center director's salary. I guess one of my questions is how come that wasn't kind of fine-tuned in the submission that we were given? I'll let you answer that first.
Yeah, so I just looked at my notes again as far as how the budget was developed, and me not knowing too much about that, I used last year's budget and went with that. Didn't know anything about a change maybe in that process and saying, hey, we don't need that.
So that was discussed in last year's budget, so, we're not limiting, I call them FTEs, full-time equivalents. That role has not been filled, but it gave the option to, if you wanted to fulfill that role, it was budgeted for that line to fulfill that role. But there was no plans to fill that role last year. But we didn't want to, hamstring the board to not being able to fill that role if that's something, a direction they want to do.
I guess for the public's sake, I guess they're looking for more accuracy in some things that we do. I know no one's perfect and nothing's perfect. If this is the guide that we're using to do the budget, I guess I'm saying that I understand with the appropriations, we just need to pass this in order to appropriate the funds. I get that. But also with the budget, we do need to have some accuracy there in what we're spending, line items, the salaries, so that there is transparency to the public, because we have them without financials. And we do know they were working on it. I'm not here to answer about that, but as time moves on, definitely that is something that is really being stressed in accuracy and transparency, especially in the budget.
Understood.
A couple more comments about this appropriation. The reason I hate it is that this is an incredibly misleading document. Because it really doesn't matter to us, I think our staff tried fairly close to what the actual budget. But if you were a community that this was an important document, it'd be a lot higher, because you have to assume everything that could happen. Maybe we want to hire 3 more police officers. Well, gotta be the appropriation ordinance, even if you never really do it. How many cars are gonna be after that? How many engines are gonna blow up? How many accidents are gonna be? You gotta kind of guess all those things that might happen in the future, and make some kind of economic number in here for all those things that could or might happen in the product that will. So, for those communities that this is actually an important document, which would be non-homeowners communities, this is incredibly misleading to the public, because you get these incredibly high numbers, which incorporate contingencies that likely are never gonna happen, yet you need to have it in there, because you're stuck. If you haven't appropriated for it, you can't spend the money. So you have to make up a bunch of things that might or could happen and have them in here, which increases the number. So for communities that this is important, it's an incredibly misleading document for the public, because it's extremely higher than what your budget is.
Any other questions?
And John, to that point, you know, my goal to teach Brian is to have the budget and appropriations filed at the same time. We're just not at that point right now. You know, hopefully next year when we're talking, we can have the budget worked out in the spring to have it near the appropriations.
Yeah, and you guys do a great job of that, and I know Chris is all about doing it. For communities that this actually matters, this could be a lot higher than the actual budget.
I just wanted to add to Attorney Donahue's point regarding the appropriation that we're getting caught up in versus the budget, the levy, and just really saying that you do not want to increase your appropriation because when you're back here in December, you will have to recite what it is that you amount that you appropriated, but because your budget can look very different, and you can build into that in your big ticket line items you plan, since we already have a capital improvement plan, you just increase that amount to those line items as the board has already approved to go out for loans. So I think that it just makes sense, and that because we all know that there's discrepancies in here, but what I can guarantee you is that any increase in this appropriation that's cited there, we're still in December going to have to record the amount that you appropriated, what is to be levied, and where you're going to get those other resources, and what you don't want to do without having current financials and knowing that you will have some level of increase in your revenues and that you don't currently have no revenues, is to box yourself in. That's my input as the treasurer.
So, Treasurer Hart, my thought, would it make sense to just remain flat?
Yes.
I'll make that, well, let me ask these questions first. Adam, I know we had talked before, and you said that one of the things that you want to see in this upcoming budget cycle would be a line item for capital improvements. Why did we include that in the ordinance?
That's going to be discussed during the budget meetings. Last year, the board did not approve any capital improvements. We have a capital improvement fund. We did. Yeah, right, but we were basing this off of last year, so that would be a line item that we had to add into the budget. But it'd be an offset, so your revenue would be capital loan proceeds, and then your expenditure.
No, yeah, I understand. I was just wondering why we didn't see that.
No, that would be, you know, once we compile all the capital requests from the departments, then we'll put together a list of capital needs, and then say, okay, it's 700,000 or 1.2 million, and then, you know, we can say, okay, what is truly, this department, can we delay that project? Because there's so much discussion that we have to have, that's why it's happening.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then I wanted to ask, and I don't know, I know you've had an opportunity to see last year's, but I don't know if you just looked at the appropriations for I'd say maybe at least the last 2 or 3 years. Maybe Treasurer Hart, you might know better, or even Brian. Oh, I'm sorry. Does anyone know how close we've come to what our budget looks like in comparison to the appropriation ordinance for at least the last 2 or 3 years?
Of the last 4 years, that, for the last 3 years, your appropriation has remained flat and your budget has come under.
Okay.
And that's why we didn't have to delay.
That makes sense. So, Brian, in drafting this, was there conversation about or maintaining of having to levy taxes? Would that foreseeably be a need?
No. So the direction that we received, Post Manager, Mitchell just said, the direction we received is no.
Yeah, I know that's what we just said now, but I'm saying as we were creating this, was there a thought that at some point the village is going to have to increase the levy on taxes?
No, with the additional, so last year we recall the additional internal taxes that we received, I was able to balance the budget with that increase. We're gonna look at it, I did mention to the board in one of my previous updates that there are a couple line items that are gonna be going down in the budget, but it's not as detrimental as the increase was last year. So sales taxes have been performing well, home sales taxes, income taxes have been performing well. The ones that are going down are
And but in considering in terms of the climate of taxes, considering the market, just in totality, and with, I mean,
and
our
that's
circumstances
my
of
budget.
businesses and taxes.
Accountants are very conservative, so is my budgeting. I do have a conservative aspect, but when I'm looking at that, I will tend not to over budget revenue line items so that we can hit the budget. And then when we're going through the budget, we look at do our revenues meet our needs and expenses. And then at that point, once I compile all the department heads information, then we go back to the department heads and ask them to fine tune it if we need to cut some additional line items. If revenues do not meet their what they're performing at.
So, Brian, you said that you looked at the worksheets, and maybe I didn't hear or probably misunderstood. When you were saying you looked at the worksheets, which gave you some of the information, was that last year's worksheets or this year's worksheets?
So this year's worksheets that I created so that the department heads could filter their information back to us or their asks.
So this year's?
Yep.
Okay.
Now, some of the lines that I did give them was like payroll, because payroll still hasn't been booked correctly going back for 2 years, I'll say, completely. So that's kind of why we kind of held that back from them, and they just did the other expenses, and we worked through the payroll system.
And so, I guess to the end, is that a component that's kind of slowing down the audit and budget process with the payroll? What is slowing down internally the budget and audit process that's preventing us from getting actuals?
Yeah, so we gotta get, 2022 is in the works as far as moving down the tracks. 2023, which should be followed quickly after, we have to make sure all the entries are in there. And like I said, we've identified that there's some payroll entries missing that are even further back than just when Paylocity went into place. So we gotta get those updated and put into the system.
So is it just payroll? That's
For the most part, payroll benefits, I'm gonna qualify with benefits too, but yes.
And the reasoning for being 2 years unnoticed is the Paylocity? I mean,
No, I just change over and finance roles.
So once we get this payroll, finalized, then that's the largest hurdle at this point? There's no other department, there's nothing else outstanding?
Nothing else is really sticking out right now, but we're gonna do another combing of all the data to make sure that we're not missing anything else to go forward with in 2023. So, you know, in theory, you could ask on one of the lines, is the accounting fees in there? I presume we're gonna have 2 years of audit costs here because we need to get caught up.
Okay. Mayor, I believe that just based on the answers and recommendations, that we would remain flat for last year without this 300+ increase for this particular ordinance this year.
So you amend your motion to suggest that our total bottom line is $25,356,996?
Correct.
Trustee Taylor, will you amend your motion? Okay, so what we'll have to do, gentlemen, we have to have this,
I can't get it in, we have to pass it.
so for Taylor, this down the line, if you can make some changes, Mike and Adam make some changes that bring it down by the $300,000. Some way or the other, and then once that is done, we will email it to all the trustees. Any other questions? Deputy Clerk Williamson, call the roll.
Well, let's take the motion.
Approval of an ordinance making appropriations for the village of Lebanon, Cook County, Illinois, for the fiscal year beginning May 1st, 2024, ending in April 30th, 2025, in the amount of $25,356,996.
So,
Deputy Clerk Williamson, call the roll. Do we have to give a first one, second?
yeah.
Will you amend your motion, trustee Lynch? Okay, Deputy Clerk Williamson, call the roll.
Trustee Williams.
Aye.
Trustee Taylor.
Yes.
Trustee Roll.
Yes.
Trustee Lynch.
Yes.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Trustee Brown.
Yes.
Okay, that's it, John, right?
Yes.
Okay, engineers report, Dave Schiller.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple meetings ago, we had a proposal from Gallagher Asphalt for hot place recycling using the local fuel tax fund. Direction from the board was to table that and come back with an amount that is under the available fund balance, which I believe was around $250,000. So I work with Gallagher Asphalt, it's going to be a much smaller project, only focused in the forest. But I do have a proposal for consideration for $209,735. Like the motion said, might as well go to $215, not to exceed in case.
Would somebody like to make a motion to approval of the Gallagher Asphalt proposal not to exceed $215,000 for the hot place resurfacing the streets within the forest subdivision? So moved. Trustee Lynch, do I have a second?
Second.
Trustee Roll, any questions?
I'm just one, I can't remember if it was either Trustee Rowe or Trustee Brown who had asked for, if there was a list, if we could rate the streets in terms of what was at most disrepair, so that as we back into this, we know where it's more important to start in terms of lifespan. Did we ever,
Yeah, we did that over a 5-year plan, right, Dave?
Yeah, which we've actually, we're ahead of the 5-year plan that CMAQ prepared for us, I think in 21. So yeah, you're about due for another re-rating.
no, and that's fine, I'm just saying, I think it was, I asked, and I don't know if Trustee Brown or Trustee Rowe, the guy, I can't remember who asked for it, but I'd like to have seen which streets on the list from good to bad or worse.
I can get you that for
Okay, and then, yeah, and then what streets in the forest is this going to apply to?
It is,
I
I hope Center Street.
Yes.
Amen. Center Street.
There's a portion of Center Street between Pine and Sycamore. There is Mulberry from Center to Elm Lane between Mulberry and Rose. A portion of Rose Street between Cedar and Oak. And then Cedar, Oak, and Clark. I have copies here. I can give it to all of us. I'm just curious. Try to stick them together to keep the units. Thank you.
And Brian, are we gonna, notify the residents that that's gonna happen?
Yeah, part of it, what we do is not only do we notify them through social media, the website, but Gallagher also notifies them if they do door hangers or they do some type of notification to them before they even get started on the process.
And when did it start?
Like I said at the previous meeting, they're looking to move their operations south for the fall, so I think they're ready to get started as soon as possible. I was let them know in the morning that those are people that.
And no parking on the street. Any other questions?
I just got a quick question. I've never asked this before, and I don't even think, I don't know if it's possible or not. You know, where Center ends, and like where Young and Center kind of coincide, and at the end of Young, it goes around that curve by the fire plant, by that forest preserve, and then it turns into Center. That's really dangerous. And I'm not, I mean, the forest preserve is right there, the railroad tracks, but like, I do it every day. And so as I'm coming around, you got the other people coming, let's say from Gabe's place, and we are almost colliding. I know you can't put a line down the middle of the street or anything like that, I know that, but it's really bad. You know, sometimes I have to like curve over and almost get into the grass on that, or sometimes they may almost run into one of the residents' homes. I don't know if you can widen that. I don't know what kind of sign you can put up, like slow down or cautious or deer crossing. I don't know. So people.
You can do signs, you can do a line down the middle of the street, you can do a center lane marking, you can do reflectors on posts on the curb.
Something, because I think about it every day, to be honest with you, because I gotta come that way coming home. And you never know who's coming around that curve, and it's really dark because the forest reserve is right there, so we, just one of those. Deer crossing sign, the reflectors may need it's a really bad accident waiting to happen.
Joe, can you take care of
I
that?
have a question, I'm sorry, I promise. Joe, are we, I know we had, and Chief could probably remember this, I know we've had this problem in years past with that median that's on Halsted, those weeds that are there, I know that's state property. Are we talking to them?
They were out and started on that the day of the storm cleanup, and something happened and one of their main men fell and broke his ankle. I had to pick him up in the ambulance, so yes, we're discussing with them. I don't know, they certainly had more important things to do on the day of the storm, but they were out there starting on it that day with 3 big trucks. But one of the gentlemen fell and broke an ankle, so they haven't been back since.
So one guy breaks his ankle and nobody else.
And nobody shows up.
It's obvious.
It's a union job.
And then, Joe, what about the medians, for example, going to the manor? And Chief, that plaza, Joe, I don't, is that a responsibility of the contractor? It looks horrible.
As far as vegetation control?
Yes.
And we go out there, I usually try to get out there once every couple of weeks, for the past, I think it's like 3 weeks now. Just picking up branches, and that's all we're doing, so we need to get the branches done so we get back into a regular weekly.
We spoke of that yesterday.
Because even the medians, when I'm driving into the manor,
Right, we usually go in and we whack and.
Because I was looking, and I'm like, man, this looks horrible. And then I drove by.
We usually don't let it get that much.
It's gone. But then that was like, they're talking.
Right, this time of year they grow like weeds, so you have to address them every week, every couple of weeks, to keep them at bay.
Any other questions? Deputy Clerk Williams, call roll.
Trustee Brown.
Yes.
Trustee Clark. Trustee Lynch.
Yes.
Trustee Roll. Cruz.
Any new business? Any old business?
Your Honor,
Make a motion.
just want a reminder to the board, elected officials, and the department heads of the showcase event at the Mavis 24 Division Headquarters. You've all gotten invites to, I believe. If you haven't, please let me know. It's August 10th at 10 o'clock in the morning. It's an open, rolling, you can stay as long as you like. The point of that is to showcase the value of your investment into Mavis Division 24 and show you what your payment of about $6,000, $7,000 gets you in an insurance policy. So we look forward. This is a culmination of our modernization program that made us take a deep look at how we function after the death of that South Holland diver in a training incident. So this has been long prepared for, so please take advantage and stop by.
It's at Ashland in
175-55 Ashland. There will be some ice cream available for little or no cost.
And I'd like everybody to know, next Tuesday is our National Night Out at Hickory Bend Fieldhouse, so come on out, it's a great time. We'll put a plug guy up, Deputy Chief.
So yeah, it's next Tuesday.